Welcome to Timberline Bass Podcast, your place for Wisconsin bass fishing and everything outdoors.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of the Timberline Bass Podcast. Today I just want to do an episode on BFS fishing. Um, Oddly enough, kind of a tough, touchy subject in our field here, relatively new. I mean, there's definitely a lot of guys out there adopting it, but it's not super commonplace yet. We're starting to get more and more tackle revolving around it, and it's definitely an interesting concept. The last 2 years, I decided I was going to give it a try. I thought it was kind of intriguing. I figured if nothing else, catching bass on ultralight bait casting tackle was kind of a neat concept. But what started out as kind of a novelty has turned into a pretty big part of my repertoire. Um, so those who don't know, don't understand, whatever, I'll explain it a little bit. Sorry to guys who do know what it is. Um, so my understanding is BFS started out in Japan for the guys that river and stream fish up in the mountains. They wanted ultralight tackle that was easy enough to move back and forth hiking up mountain trails and stuff like that. That's why a lot of the JDM stuff, it's a lot of two-piece rods. I've seen some that are really not standard two-piece configurations. I'm personally not a two-piece guy, but I've got a couple of them and they actually work pretty good. But basically, the whole idea is you can take ultralight, super finessey things that you would normally throw on a spinning rod, or even sometimes even having a hard time throwing on a spinning rod, and throw it on bait casting tackle. There's more and more brands getting into it. Don't quote me. I know for a fact Daiwa's got a lot of stuff out. Cast King's got some stuff. Megabass has got some stuff. Um, I didn't get too crazy. I don't have any of the Megabass stuff. But I do got a lot of their BFS baits. The cool thing is more people are adopting it. It's kind of turned into like if there's a full size bait, somebody's making a BFS version of it now, scaled down, lighter, super finessey. And in the last few years here in Wisconsin, honestly, ever since COVID, um, there's a lot more people on the water. I mean, I remember back in the day, I could go out fishing on a Tuesday and I wasn't competing with anybody. Now I can't go on a Monday without there being 20 boats on my local pond. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Good. I mean, I miss the days of having some of the stuff to myself, but it's nice to see more people are getting into it. We do at the end of the day want to grow the sport. I'd like to see more people out there doing it. But with that comes a lot more pressure. I mean, lakes that back in the day you could go out and run the bank and flip a jig and just hammer on them. There's still those days, but I'm finding more and more, a guy's got to downscale a little bit. So I've dabbled. I've got a little bit of everything in the process of working on a BFS flipping jig with a local company. Got some ideas rolling there. But, you know, I've been doing everything from super finesse flipping with stuff like that. Um, Little spinner baits, little buzz baits, top waters, jerk baits, crankbaits, and chatterbaits. Honestly, one of my favorite things to do are the BFS swim jigs. Um, So at this point, like, I'm not gonna say I haven't tried everything. I mean, there's a BFS Corrado out there. I've been contemplating getting one. They're a little on the pricey side, but that's the thing a guy needs to understand too with this. So I mean, your average for bait casting, I kind of see it quarter ounce is kind of the bottom, very bottom end of what I want to do with a bait caster. Up to 1 ounce. Look at the big glide baits and swim baits and stuff now. I mean, they're getting heavy. Um, but with this BFS stuff, tuning a setup to be able to throw a 32nd of an ounce. And I get it. The argument is like a lot of this stuff, yeah, you could just pick it up and do it with a spinning rod. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not saying go out and drop a bunch of money on BFS stuff. But I have come to find there are things I like doing with my BFS rods a lot more than I like doing with a spinning rod. I mean, honestly, like I will even kind of power shot. I mean, it's not because I'm still doing light stuff, but I mean, bed fishing and stuff. I'll flip a drop shot on a BFS rig. I like the hookup. I like the drag. You know, and you're running lighter line. I mean, for some stuff, I'm running. I pretty much solely run like a 15-pound mainline braid. You're good. You want good braid. I mean, had a little bit of an issue finding braid that works good. That them finer braids that work good on a bait caster. I mean, you just kind of got to shop around and play a little bit. I mean, I'm not trying to gatekeep nothing. My big ones, P line. I use a lot of the P line braid for that. I'm dabbling with the new Daiwa X braid. Big fan of the Daiwa J braid. That's actually one of my go-tos. I've played around with Sunline a little bit. Some of that's pretty good. Um, Found out the hard way last year. Some of these oddball braids that they're doing now are like a braided fluorocarbon. And I'm the old school thought process, like, braid should last a couple of years on a rod. I shouldn't need to change it out every 2 or 3 weeks like I do my fluorocarbon. Um, but some of that stuff you do, you got to watch that. Um, but then, I'll run my, my biggest thing with the BFS. I find myself doing a lot. I mean, us shear boys are pretty synonymous with flipping docks and skipping and all that good stuff. So that's a pretty big part of my wheelhouse. Um, but so I've been using, I actually had my first BFS rod I had custom built by Bros Pro Rods out of Wausau. I'd never heard of them before. I just wanted to get into it, but I had something really specific in mind. And at the time, the rods I was looking at, I just, they seemed too wimpy, which seems so counterintuitive. But I called him and told him, I want a BFS rod, but I want to be able to toss, like a 32nd ounce hair jig on it. But I also want to be able to throw a quarter ounce Ned rig or something on it too. I kind of asked him to build an all around rod, and well, it didn't end up. And I was asking a lot. This is nothing on them whatsoever. Excuse me. I was asking for the impossible. There is no all around rod like that. But without the comprehension of what it is, I was trying to learn and dabble with so many things. It wasn't going to happen. So what I ended up with was the most amazing BFS flipping rod that I've ever seen. None of the store bought ones come close. If anything ever happens to that rod, I'm going to be distraught because that is the one rod I can guarantee every derby day, every day I'm on the water, that's on the deck of my boat. Whether I'm my biggest thing on it is skipping Cincos. I get it. You can skip a Cinco on a spinning rod, but you can't skip a Cinco the same way, or at least I can't skip a Cinco the same way that I can on a bait caster. I mean, the thing is ridiculous. And what I really like is it's got enough backbone. Always kind of scared fishing light line around docks and stuff when they wrap you up. I set the hook, I run 15-pound braid on there, a 12-pound leader on it. Um, when I set the hook, I don't know what it's got on it, maybe a 9-pound drag or something like that. But I jack on them just like I would on my flipping stick, with a freaking 3/8 ounce jig and a 4/0 hook. I mean, I freaking bend that rod over and just start cranking, and I have never lost a fish on it. Not not because the line failed or anything like that. My own stupidity, yeah, but the rod, the reel, the line, the setup, it'll freaking do it. And I drag them right out of there. And I think that's what amazed me the most. I mean, it filled a hole in my repertoire that I never really knew I had. And on those days when they're not biting a jig, I mean, I catch a lot of fish on a perch colored Cinco. It's a thing. I'd be curious to see how it is outside of Wisconsin, but everything in Wisconsin likes perch. That's my deal. But, going from there too, you know, uh, a lot of the jerk baits and stuff, the BFS stuff, they don't have the great big bill on them. You can get some sinking ones, some suspending, some floating. I mean, they pretty much all your options in your big stuff, you can find something that you can throw on there decent. And I catch myself running the bank sometimes with a jerk bait, like a surf, using it like you would a swim jig or something like that. Just cover a lot of water with it really quick, slow down around cover, keep it out a little bit. The BFS swim jigs. Um, I buy a lot of them from TNT Tackle. He's got some really good ones, really great colors, good hooks. The big thing is with all this stuff, you got to keep in mind the size. Like you don't want to throw a 3/8 ounce swim jig with a 3/0 hook on it. I mean, like you're running lighter wire stuff because they don't have the backbone that your standard casting tackle does. That's the point of it. So you want to have a setup, a good rod and reel that you can, tighten down the drag on some things when, you can get away with running the heavier line, give them the beans and get them to the boat. And I mean, I've boat flipped 2.5 pounders on this stuff and I'm not scared of it at all. Um, but a lot of times, we've got some lakes around here that, they've seen every swim jig and every chatterbait in the freaking book. And sometimes you just got to scale down. So I'll throw a 3/16 or an 1/8 ounce swim jig, that light wire hook, and I catch a lot of fish doing it. I'm not scared to fish behind anybody throwing a full size swim jig, and I alternate. I've got a regular swim jig and a chatterbait tied on too, and I just, keep flip flopping back and forth, run a section, maybe turn around and run it again and throw something different. More so when I'm pre fishing tournament day. Hopefully by then I have a better idea of what's going on, but paying attention to the cues that the fish give you is always important. Um, but I catch a lot of fish on it. And where I would say the BFS stuff really shines the most. I mean, like a lot of guys around here, we fish a lot of team derbies. Me and my dad, we do a Tuesday night thing. We jump in a lot of opens and stuff like that. And my dad and I, we go into it. He's running the big stuff. He's got the big stick, the big line. He's flipping jigs, running swim jigs, all that good stuff. And I back clean up behind him. I can fish the same spots or even hit the stuff he misses with that Cinco, and I pick up a lot of fish. Honestly, two, I kind of hate to give it away because I know nobody else is doing it, but I'll treat some of the little Ned rigs. Back in the day, Wisconsin chompers were a big thing. I know guys on here know what that is. And there's still a big thing down south, but back in the day, we used to throw the chompers jig head, which if you really go back and look at it, was an oversized Ned rig, and then the twin tail hula grub style that Chompers had, that heavy garlic, that I smell garlic when I'm cooking and it takes me back to being 10 years old in the boat tying on a Chompers. As terrible as it is, I remember chewing on them damn things when I was a kid. It was garlic, it was salty, whatever. It probably explains a lot, but um so there's some companies out now that got some pretty close little twin-tailed hula grubs, and I'll rig them on a weedless Ned rig and skip them up under docks and stuff too. Fish edges, fish brush with it. You got to be careful, but it's no different than anything else. And a lot of times when the fish are being pressured, that is all the difference in the world. Um, but so we'll get into some of the stuff. So I've tried tackle wise or your rods and reels and stuff. I've got both versions of the BFS Tatula reels from Daiwa. Um, Both phenomenal reels. The lower end one is what I run on my custom made rod from Bros Pro. Have had zero issues with it. It skips like a dream. Casts way better than it has any right to. I mean, I'm throwing some light stuff and it'll do whatever I want it to do. I can, a little bit heavier hair jigs, I can toss them around on there. I mean, some of that stuff I would still definitely rather fish on a spinning rod, certain applications, sturgeon bait, throwing hair jigs and stuff. I'm gonna throw it on a standard spinning rod, like it makes more sense. It's easier to load the tip up, get it out there. The slower gear ratio on the reels is conducive to a little hair jig. Um, Drop shotting and stuff like that. For the vast majority of things, I would still rather use a spinning rod. Um, Arguably, they work pretty good on shaky heads if you got one with enough backbone. Um, for anything with a treble hook, they're phenomenal. I mean, the like Megabass Karashi Twish baits. um, Being in the land of the smallmouth, that's a thing to pay attention to. And yeah, I mean, you could throw them on a spinning rod too. I'm not like, again, don't go out and buy this just because, I'm saying it's a good thing, but that's how I like to do it. Um, but I do some damage on stuff like that. And even the wimpier rods I have, them little treble hooks, you, you almost, like if you're going to throw something like that, if you've never seen the Karashi Twitch baits, I mean, they've got tiny little treble hooks on them. I've caught rock bass and bluegills on them. Like it's not exactly what I would have chosen for that, but for the sink rate and stuff like that, it is what it is. And I've got some custom ones that I do, and I put bigger hooks on them. But having that ultralight BFS rod with the good bend to it and the light line and everything, like it works pretty good. You're not tearing out hooks. I've never tore the hooks out of a fish as long as you're using the right rod. Um, Daiwa's got a very good selection of BFS rods. They've got some lower end ones. I don't remember the exact line. Like you'd have to do some digging, and they do pretty good on labeling what they're good for. I think they've got a jig one and like a moving bait one. Um, I haven't tried their jig one, not the lower end one. Um, but the moving bait one was a two-piece rod, and it kind of surprised me. It wasn't two-piece with the split in the middle. The rod blank with the eyes comes in one piece, and then it like you've seated in the handle, and it's rock solid. I don't even know if I could get it apart if I wanted to. Um, but it's got a really good bend to it. And that's actually, I throw a lot of my BFS top waters on there. I've got little spooks and stuff like that, and pop R's. I'll throw little buzz baits and spinner baits on there too. And I've never had a problem burying the hook, even on my little swim jigs. I mean, that's my go to moving bait rod. Um, I've, I've never had any problems with it. I mean, I've also this year when I was down at the Classic, one of the booths down there, they were running a really good deal. So I bought the highest end Daiwa reel for the BFS and one of their really high end BFS rods. I haven't gotten out to fish with it yet. I'll probably do an update on that at some point. But it's light. It's a little bit wimpier tip than I wanted, but I think it's gonna work good. Um The other thing too, like if you're want to try this and want to get into it in a budget, um, I wouldn't be afraid of the Cast King. Them are probably the most reasonable. I've got the original cheaper Kestrel. Um, it was actually kind of funny. I wasn't paying attention and ordered my buddy a reel and ordered that. And I just saw the shallow spool on it and thought it was a flipping reel. And then it showed up and we put it on. I didn't read the box and tied a 3/8 ounce jig on the other end. And no matter what I did, I couldn't get the jig to slow down when it was falling, no matter how I adjusted the spool. And then I realized what it was. That was actually how I ended up, excuse me, buying my first BFS rod because, I felt bad. I bought the reel back from him. Um, but I had a reel sitting there and I'm like, well, screw it. I already got, half the cost in it. I'll just buy a rod and play around with it. It could be fun. And fell in love with it. Like I said, there's always one or two BFS rods on the deck of my boat. And I throw them a lot. Um, for the money, the original Kestrel, I mean, it's not a Daiwa. I mean, it's like anything, you get what you pay for. But for throwing swim jigs and stuff on it, works really good. The little twitch baits, I wouldn't be scared. Really fine wired hooks. I would throw, um, a Ned rig, something like that with it. I don't think a guy would have any problems. Um, and then when I was down at the classic, I stopped by the Cast King booth and the gentleman there. I told him, not that I really have complaints with the Kestrel, but I said, have you guys done anything to improve any of the little things like the drag could be a little bit better and it could be a little heavier built. And he talked me into buying the upgraded, little bit higher end. Well, not I think it's the highest end Kestrel they make, but he gave me a screaming deal on it, and they threw in their BFS rod with it. And I figured, for the money, whatever, I'll give it a go. So I got that home with me too, and I've got it rigged up. And from what I've seen, it's not bad. That I think the rod is a Kestrel Series 2. That's a two piece. It breaks somewhere in the middle. It's a little wimpier than I would have liked. I mean, that'll definitely be just a treble hook rod. I'll probably stick to throwing, swim jigs and stuff on the other one, spinner baits, buzz baits, all that good stuff. Um, but I think for top water, it's got, a pretty good twitch to it. It loads up decent. I mean, I wouldn't be scared to catch a 4 or 5 pounder on it. The upgraded reel seems a lot nicer. It's Cast King. It's again not a Daiwa, not a Shimano. It's not a Corrado. It's not like it is what it is. But it didn't take too much to get it set decent. The one thing I really figured out with that BFS stuff, like when you get your rod spooled up, you either gotta, when you're running your line on, get a rag wet and pinch your line down to your rod when you're doing it. Or the first time you go out, you need to just long line it, take it out, bomb a cast out, drag all that line off the spool and burn it back as fast as you can to get it, packed back on the spool tight enough to do anything. Um, but no, I mean, in all honesty, like I said, it has its place. It definitely something I would say to look into. It works good. It works for me. It's made me money. It's not something I would ever go away from. I like I said, I rely on it a lot. Um, and I'm sure there's more companies out there that have good things, and a lot of these custom companies too. I mean, if you've got something specifically you wanted to do, reach out to your local company or call Bros Pro. I mean, and they ship wherever you are. So they build a good quality rod. It's, I paid good money for it, but it's hands down the nicest rod I own. Even nicer than that high end Daiwa I bought. Nothing against Daiwa, but custom's custom, man. Um, they even went, down to the colors I wanted, the reel seat I wanted. Did I want titanium guides? What did I want my inserts like? I swear to God, when I flip a Cinco under a dock or skip it up under there, it could be 10 foot deep at the end of the dock, and I can feel it when the Cinco touches the bottom. I can't do that on a spinning rod, not even on my high end St. Croix. Not, I mean, there's something there, and I don't miss bites and I don't miss fish on it. In bed fishing too, it's phenomenal. A lot of times, as big of a pain as it is getting a Cinco to land on a bed perfect with the way it does its thing. Um, I'll throw a white Cinco on and pluck smallies off the bed with that. Normally when you're bed fishing, you watch when they swim off, and a lot of times you set the hook and they didn't even actually have it. They were just kind of nosing at it and they move on. But with that rod, you can tell when they mouth it and pick it up. Like it's neat. I would definitely look into it. Um, so yeah, thank you guys very much for tuning in and listening to the second episode. Again, like any support we can get, like, share, tell your friends. Anybody who wants to reach out, I'll make sure I got my email in the description and stuff. I'm always more than happy to hear anything anybody's got to say. Thank you guys very much. Thank you for watching the Timberline Bass Podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, comment, all that normal stuff. Thank you very much for your support.